Live or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Program, you obviously can tell that we have State Representative Dan Sullivan is with us in studio. Dan, welcome back, sir.
Hey, Paul. Always good to be here. Thank you.
We also have a special treat as well from the Alliance Defending Freedom. The senior counsel, Mr. Tyson Langhofer, is on the phone. Tyson, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Absolutely, and I know you're in the middle of traveling. I appreciate you able to take the time out of your day to talk to us about this. The case that we're referring to is, right here in Arkansas. Arkansas State University has been sued by Turning Point USA. This from the Associated Press, and it says attorneys with Alliance Defending Freedom filed the federal lawsuit Wednesday on behalf of student Ashlyn Hoggard and conservative group Turning Point USA. The Jonesboro Sun reported Hoggard set up a table at the university in October, hoping to generate interest in forming a campus chapter of Turning Point USA, but an administrator told her to stop. So, Tyson, what can you tell us as senior counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom? What can you tell us about this particular incident?
Sure. Well, we represent Ashlyn. Ashlyn's a student that really is passionate about our First Amendment freedoms. She's passionate about limited government, and she wanted to bring a new voice, a new group to Arkansas State University. So she, applied to form Turning Point USA. In order to do that, you have to have at least 5 members. And so she thought, well, I'm going to go set up a table out in the front of the student union where there's a lot of foot traffic. And she set it up along the side of a large walkway, open walkway on the side where she wasn't blocking any sort of traffic. And she just had a sign that and a bowl of candy. And within several minutes, an administrator and a police officer came over and told her that she had to move because for 2 reasons. One, she was not in the speech zone, and apparently Arkansas State has a policy which limits students to speaking to other students into speech zones. And not only do they limit them that way, but they also require prior permission before doing so. And so they ordered Ashlyn to leave, and she did leave. And Ashlyn contacted us, and we filed a lawsuit challenging these policies because they're unconstitutional.
So what exactly, because I know the university, they said, look, our policy is consistent with the First Amendment. So, I mean, when I cover this, it's like, okay, well, somebody says, no, we're following the First Amendment. Somebody else says, no, you're not. So where's the rub? Obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the First Amendment is very clear that what this is a prior restraint. The public university is a public forum for its students, and it has large open walkways, it has park-like areas, and the university is a public institution, and it can't shut down areas and require students to get prior permission before engaging in speech in these public forums. And that's very clear. I'm not aware of a case in the country which has upheld a policy which limits students to small speech zones on its campus. And we've litigated these for more than 10 years. We have more than a 90% success rate. And I've looked at this. This policy is similar to ones that we've struck down in many, many other states and many other jurisdictions. And, so college students don't need a permit to speak to other students on campus. The only permit they need is the First Amendment.
I mean, I completely agree with that. And, I would wonder kind of how this came about. You mentioned other universities. Are there any other universities in Arkansas that you know of that have this similar policy where they're basically, advancing this concept of freedom of speech zones?
Yeah, I believe University of Arkansas has one as well. And you can look. There's some websites that track this, and I've looked at University of Arkansas. I believe they have one as well. The policies are fairly prevalent. They are becoming less so because they're being attacked and struck down so often. But they go across the country, and it's this mindset by universities, by government officials of this nanny state that they somehow have to monitor every action that's taken by these students are adults, and they don't need to be monitored in every action that they take on the university campus. There's all kinds of policies that the university can use if there is a problem. They have policies that say you can't block.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell Program.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
So what was your impression overall over this 2017 session?
Yeah, it was one of those sessions where I think there was a lot of pressure. It seemed like it was unusual. I've been through 4 of these now, and this one was a lot different because it seemed like early on there was a lot of pressure building up among the different members in the Senate and the House, and some strange things happened. I don't know. I know they voted on the other end to allow the Speaker to have the discretion to choose all the committee members, and basically gave away their tenure, and that was kind of a shock.
Have State Representative Kim Hendren.
And so this last session, there was a rule change brought by the Speaker that he appoints all committees, all chairmen, and all vice chairmen. And I don't agree with that. I think that's wrong. I have told the Speaker that personally. What's happened is it's all consolidated. And I just say this, Paul, and your listeners need to understand. I hope they'll understand this. We've got 135 members in that legislature down there. No member down there ought to get 2 bites at the apple before the one with the least seniority, the last one in there, gets the first bite. And that's what's going on over and over and over again, and it ought to be stopped. And the only people that can stop it are the voters of the state of Arkansas, and they will stop it if they know what's going on. I don't go around saying I'm going to look at your skill set, decide what you need to do, and then put you in a committee. Because when that kind of stuff happens, you owe somebody. And that's the problem that's going on down there right now. More and more power is getting concentrated in fewer and fewer people.
State Representative Brad Smith from District 58. Take as long or be as brief as you want. Just in general, what is your impression of the session 2017?
Well, overall, I think it was fairly successful, and I use the term fairly because there were bills that were brought before the House that were divisive, caused a lot more anxiety than perhaps we wanted.
A total of $380 million in proposed or passed taxes. That makes limited government conservatives that want to keep their money a little nervous. What are your thoughts on that, Senator Johnson?
They didn't make it through. So there was a total of about 17 million that made it through. It don't matter what's proposed. There's a lot of stuff proposed. 2,000 bills were proposed. Some of them were for revenue and some of them were for law changes. But the ones that matter are the ones that passes through the system. It's a complex system. There's a lot of physically conservative that voted against those measures, and they didn't make it through.
But, I mean, what was your impression of this past session?
Well, it's nobody but us and your listeners here, so I'm going to be honest with you. This session was pretty much a joke. We've lowered income taxes on our tax bracket of folks that don't pay income taxes usually, and what they do pay, they make money on when they get their taxes back. And then, we continue to fight for and uphold Obamacare in Arkansas. We continue to not fully fund programs for the truly needy. And on top of that, we managed to raise a few fees and taxes. I mean, exactly what you would hope for out of a Republican stronghold legislature and governor.
Yeah.
So
I'm picking,
that's my opinion.
On that last statement, that last statement, I'm picking up your sarcasm.
Exactly. Yes. And let me completely clarify. I am being 100% sarcastic. It was pathetic. It was just pathetic. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the taxpayers have every right to be aggravated and ashamed.
State Representative Jack Ladyman, he's from District 59.
It was tough. It was a really tough session. We discussed, passed, and failed some very important issues, I thought. Josh Miller's bill to put a cap on the Medicaid expansion. He had a bill. I was on the Health Committee, and we debated that quite a bit in the Health Committee, and it passed out of the committee, passed on the floor. I talked in favor of that on the floor and in the committee. I thought it was a good move, even though we don't know what Washington's going to do. That is something that we can do in Arkansas to limit where this thing's going, and I believe
right now it's up.
The finances are going to get out of control.
With 76 Republicans in the House, were your expectations met?
No, we didn't do what I thought we could do. There were a lot of things that I thought we could pass that did not pass. The biggest thing that bothered me, again, was the number of bills that proposed tax increases. Didn't expect that. I thought that we would at least cap the Medicaid expansion.
Marcus Richmond with us from District 21.
Well, I think that there were some things that we did, and we did it well. But at the same time, I think there was room for improvement. We need to be, I believe, just a little more imaginative than constantly trying to figure out some way to increase some tax somewhere. And then dealing with, the internet sales and those type of things, you can say what you want, tell everybody that it's not a new tax, but if you haven't been paying it, as far as everybody's concerned, it is a new tax. If we're going to call ourselves Republicans, we need to look at the party platform and consider what's in that, as far as, smaller, more efficient government, trying to be efficient with the tax revenue, looking for ways that we can allow the people to keep as much money as possible. And I think that in order to do that, and again, this is one of my frustrations. I was happy that, there were some tax cuts, but then when you look at how the tax cuts were done, we really just kind of shifted obligations around. And in order to really cut taxes, you've got to find some place to cut spending. And we just didn't do that effectively.
Feel free, tell us what your impression was.
Well, let me start with, I was listening to your program. I missed your earlier segment with Senator Stubblefield, and I wish I would have caught that. But I was listening yesterday, and one of the things questions you asked was, who was happiest now that the Arkansas legislature is out of session? And I think you said the governor was. I would disagree.
You disagree?
I think the state of Arkansas at large is happy to see us out of session.
It seemed like the leadership of the Republican Party, their goal was to control what wound up on Governor Asa Hutchinson's desk, and specifically,
no question about that. No question about that. That's exactly right. The chair called off meeting. we would hold after session meetings for maybe 30 minutes and not allow certain bills to be heard. And it was pretty obvious what was going on.
Terry Rice, the chairman of that committee, Jeremy Hutchinson, seems like there was kind of an allergy to tackle any social issues, any more real conservative gun legislation or, privacy protections. There seemed to be kind of a resistance to even meet towards the end, so you wouldn't even have a chance to hear some of your colleagues' legislation or ideas.
And that all is the power of the chair, and that's the reason there's so much in the legislature that a lot of people don't understand. Government is kind of like a casino, and I'm not a big gambler, but I understand how it works. It's stacked in favor of the House. And the rules and the way things are stacked in favor of the House government. So when you appoint chairman, they have leeway. I mean, that's part of the rules. They have leeway to call and to not call, and you have things to overcome. As trying to be as conservative as we can be, it's hard to get your voice out and to get over that hump sometime because it's really stacked against you.
And I'll tell you something else, Paul, that I noticed. This is really troubling to me. I've been there going on 7 years, and sometimes I wonder why we even meet as legislators whenever you have these special interest groups and these large corporations. That we can work for weeks and months on bills or pieces of legislation trying to get them together to present. And all these groups have to do is come in and make one statement, and the whole thing is just turned upside down.
Josh Waters is from Political Strategy. What's your impression of the session 2017?
Well, if you would have asked me that with about 2 to 3 weeks to go in this session, I think it would have been a much different answer, because the last 2 or 3 weeks, the internet sales tax and the gas tax hikes were defeated. And so going into those last few weeks, if those would have passed, this would have ended up being a session of over $300 million of tax increases. Overall, I guess my impression was with a House of 76 Republicans, a Senate with 26 out of 35 Republicans, a lot of people throughout Arkansas, if not the vast majority, are going to see a net increase in fees and taxes that they pay after this session. One thing I did notice, I didn't know going in, was in all these committee rooms, it's filled with probably 90-95% of the people there are, somehow related to government or from a government entity or department or commission, or the clients, the city or county from another part of the state. And so that was kind of eye-opening, is that so much that goes on there seems to be very focused on how bills impact other government entities or agencies, commissions. And so, that was kind of eye-opening, but then there were some good comments from, Representative Lundstrom had a good comment about the taxpayers and customers.
State Representative Robin Lundstrom.
I wish we had the task force in session from last time, and we could have applied it to this time. I hate kicking the can down the road on something that needs to get done. I think we do need a task force, even though I hate the word task force. I wish we had done that last time so we could apply this time and not push it further back. I feel like there's so much more that can be done, and I'd like to see us tighten up the budget, address more highway issues without expanding the budget.
It was amazing to you, or it was concerning to you, that a lot of the lobbyists are actually lobbying for government agencies.
Well, I don't know who's paying, you can't tell what everyone's there for, but, you kind of see the same people, and then they'll get down and talk about what agency or office they're from. There were several times where, they opposed or supported something based on the impact it would have.
Until we get a group of legislators who have a real backbone and are willing to stand up to some of these, I don't see things changing in the near future.
We had some very positive things, and then we had some disappointments. I was disappointed that as a Republican majority that we, kept our expanded Medicare
program, it's just, it'll end up bankrupting us. And, I think it was Ronald Reagan that said that we measure the success of government by the amount of people that's not dependent on government. I voted against the increases of taxes, like the internet sales. First of all, I think that's an interstate commerce. I think that's a federal issue and not a state issue, because I can't imagine another state passing a law that I have to know about and that I have to be accountable to them for, and I have no representation.
We have massive Republican majorities down there, and yet some of the key pillars of the Republican Party platform, like not increasing taxes, kind of seem to be ignored.
Well,
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
In a world full of constituents with social media accounts, bloggers just looking to increase their page views, and a talk radio host who generally is just the worst, how are Little Rock's elite supposed to conduct business with such a lack of privacy? Introducing the 1835 Club, older and more refined than other clubs that claim discretion. The 1835 Club is for seasoned political veterans that want to conduct the highest form of aristocratic business with the public's money. Are you a schemer? Do you someday want a guaranteed flow of taxpayer money to support your business? Is it your dream to see the .gov domain at the end of your business website? Don't listen to the imitators. The 1835 Club is the place where corrupt politicians and businessmen hatch their next crony schemes. At the 1835 Club, we make lobbying safe and legal. Ethics. Why, of course. All business is done in an ethical manner. Just look for the sign above the door that reads, loophole. Are you tired of the Capitol Police restricting your access to the roof after a perfectly good night of drinking? The 1835 Club has libations and a perfectly good roof. Other crony clubs that promise discretion try to lure you in by advertising bars made out of aeroplanes. Well, at the 1835 Club, instead of an airplane fuselage, we've got a space shuttle. No, not a bar. We've got an actual space shuttle that makes a daily run to the moon so members of the 1835 Club can have some real privacy away from the bloggers and taxpayers. Are you an Arkansas aristocrat? Do you want to be? It's the 1835 Club, and we work tirelessly to make sure the good old boy system remains alive and well. Join today.
Disclaimer. The 1835 Club reserves the right to deny membership to anyone who has principles. Any talk of the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution must be done in jest or, at the very least, with a condescending tone. And finally, the 1835 Club will be given a 25% commission of any agreements made between politicians and the business community.
PHP Parody. The Paul Harrell Program.
Hey folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell Program.
Taxes kind of seem to be ignored.
Well, I agree with that. I think that's key. I was sitting in county government for 20 years on the Garland County Quorum Court, and in those 20 years, the only tax increases we had were the ones that people themselves voted for. We were able to live within our means. It didn't mean that we didn't cut. It didn't mean that we didn't,
change some of the things that we're providing, that we quit providing. But it's not incumbent on government to provide for everybody and to meet every whim that we want.
Why do they need the money? Why do they need more money from us?
Because government loves to spend money. And what I think we all look at is there's always going to be more needs than there is money. At a certain point, should we all just send our wallets and our checkbook to Little Rock and say, you just take what you think is fair and send it back when you're finished? Because there's always going to be a compelling reason. And believe me, I visit with people. I go to a lot of different agencies and move around to my district and across this state, and there are needs out there. What I think we have to address is, what of those needs need to be getting handled at the local level and what need to be handled at the state level. If you want less centralized government, then you've got to have, more of a focus on your local government, and you got to do more at the local level.
This was your freshman session. Take as long or take as short as you want, and just kind of generally summarize what was your impression of the 2017 session.
You just heard me say I think it's great that we're exempting military retirement pay, but I don't really have a problem saying publicly that I actually did not vote for it. Perfect example, we taxed digital downloads in that same bill. I hate that. I couldn't support that, so I voted against it.
I don't really want to shrink the size of government. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I did see some of that. I will say early on, the conversation was, let's hold up on a lot of the conversations regarding taxes because we want to create this task force. And it was just interesting to me that some of the same folks that were saying hold up on anything regarding tax cuts because of the task force were often some of the ones pushing for and offering up tax increases.
What was your impression of this 2017 session?
Seemed like we were fighting some bad legislation, and I know there was some good legislation passed. But for instance, you look at the issues with our Second Amendment, how much time on one bill that changed so many times that you were supportive in the beginning, you weren't in the end. And it just seemed like we spent a lot of time trying to make bad legislation better. Yeah. Sometimes we didn't win. I'm the platform Republican. I've kind of named it that now. There are those of us that there's a wide range of Republicans, and obviously when you look at the votes, you can see how it has gone. But as a person who believes in that platform, I'm hoping that we can see through the next few months that people can look at how their legislators voted and look at what they voted for and again, and what did they work on. So you're right. We had to work hard this time, and we'll see how it all comes down whenever we start looking at all those votes. Things start coming out. You've got organizations, you look at Conduit, and of course you is what you do in the media, and I love what you do. I always say I have to hear me some Paul Harrell.
Got the state director from Americans for Prosperity Arkansas, Mr. David Ray, is on the line. Your impression of the session?
Paul, I've heard some of the recaps you've done with legislators, and I tend to agree with a lot of what they've said. If I were to summarize it, this session was obviously a mixed bag. From a defensive posture, I think we were successful in killing some of the most egregious pieces of legislation. The gas tax bill really sticks out. That would have come with a $200 million a year price tag. And the internet sales tax as well, that would have come with a price tag of a minimum of $100 million, perhaps $150 million per year. It's not clear that that issue is dead for good, but at least a temporary victory has been won there. One of the issues that I've been very passionate about, special election reform, came up one vote short in the House. So, and then of course the Medicaid expansion enrollment freeze got out of the House, but then kind of withered on the vine over on the Senate side. So there were really some areas where we came up short, and there were some opportunities.
Dan Sullivan from District 53 is with us. Impression of the session 2017.
Sure. Well, I was certainly disappointed. We went into the session with a large majority of Republicans, and we did not come out of the session, as exercising that authority or that power that we had, the exercising the opportunity that we had in a number of areas, you know, I guess.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this. And I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Doorways. You can't block the sidewalks. You can't harass other people. So if they're doing those things, they can shut down that activity. But they can't require every student to obtain prior permission before speaking with other students. That's unconstitutional, and frankly, it's unnecessary, and it really undermines the purpose of a university, which is to allow these students to engage in the marketplace of ideas.
Hey, Tyson, it's Dan. How you doing?
Hey, Dan. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, we've spoken a few times. You know, I talked with the university officials very short. You know, as soon as this was filed, they called and want to arrange a meeting, and I fully expect them, anticipate they'll work with us to correct this. What would you consider is the correction? What do they need to do to correct their policy so they're consistent with our First Amendment?
Sure, absolutely, and frankly, that's our goal. Our goal is not to punish. Our goal is just to get a good policy, and a good policy is one that basically in the open outdoor areas of campus, we're not talking about buildings that are set aside for academic use, and we're not talking about athletic facilities. Those are set aside for certain purposes. But in the open outdoor areas of campus, students should be free to speak to other students. They shouldn't have to get a permit, and they can impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, such as they could say you can't stand outside the dorms at 3 in the morning with a bullhorn. Clearly, that's not necessary, and that's a reasonable restriction. But in the open outdoor areas of campus, sidewalks, parks, grass, things like that, the students can engage with other students without a prior permit. And so as long as they can, basically take away these speech zones, take away the prior restraints, and allow students to engage subject to certain reasonable restrictions without, not blocking or harassing, things like that, then that's a policy that is constitutional and, frankly, accomplishes the goals of the university, which is to make a campus which is amenable to students being able to learn and educate themselves.
Tyson, I've met with our college Republicans several times. I'm just really proud of them stepping up. I know they were a little anxious when this first happened, a little scared, intimidated, in fact. And I know you came to the campus, didn't you, and met with the college Republicans?
I came and met with Ashland, correct. I looked around the campus and I saw it, and it's very consistent with all the other universities that I've met with, and there's no, and seen, and there's no reason that these permits are needed. There's no reason these restrictions are needed.
Go back and listen to previous shows. Apple users can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Don't have an Apple device? Head on over to paulharrell.com and click on Podcast. It's free and available 24/7 because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Hey folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell program.
power that we had, the exercise and the opportunity that we had in a number of areas. You know, I guess the ones I'm most aware of is on the tax side of this and on the school choice bill that didn't go through, that are all platform issues. Spending, we didn't decrease spending. You know, those issues we certainly fall short of what I would have thought we would have been able to achieve with the majority that we had.
State Representative Jim Dotson, what was your impression of the session 2017?
Long and short of it, my primary focus of my entire session was focused on one bill or one concept. However, with 3/4 majorities, Republicans in the House and the Senate, I really was surprised that it was as big of that the teachers' unions and the superintendents that always oppose the Republicans and the Republican Party platform, by and large, in the education arena, had that much sway with the Republican majority.
Representative from District 70, Mr. David Meeks is with us.
You know, I had high expectations going into this session because of the numbers that we had in the House and the Senate, and also having the governorship. And, you know, I think it's safe to say that not all my expectations were met. And I think that's kind of where, you know, on some big issues like school choice, there toward the end, huge disappointment that we could not get either of the major school choice bills to get them through the House. And so, you know, that was highly disappointing. You know, when it comes to taxes, I think that was another disappointing area. Yeah, we did pass a $50 million tax cut to the low-income folks. We were able to get through a veteran tax cut, but that came at a price in which we raised taxes on some other folks. You know, we were able to keep the internet sales tax bill from getting passed, but Amazon voluntarily, and I think they would have done it either way, but, you know, it was just kind of the timing of it that Amazon, you know, then said, oh, we're going to go ahead and start charging sales tax here in the state of Arkansas. So, you know, unfortunately, it looks like for a lot of folks, they didn't see any tax relief, and as a matter of fact, they will actually see more money come out of their pocket.
Representative Jeff Williams, a Republican from District 89, is with us. What was your impression of the session 2017?
I was obviously hoping in my mind that we would see a little bit more conservative work done than was necessarily done in the session, and I simply say that because there was, you know, with having as many members in the House and both the Senate, and then holding all 7 constitutional offices, you think that you'd be able to get, you know, good, strong, conservative things through. And as I said, you know, we were successful in some manners, not so much in others. Obviously, at least in my mind, whenever you look at increasing regulations or increasing the tax burden on the, you know, people of Arkansas, that in my mind that obviously leads into into a failure. And in some aspects, we did increase some of the regulations, and we did increase some of the burdens on certain individuals or certain entities within the state.
We have the president of the Family Council, Mr. Jerry Cox, is on the line. You know, locker rooms, and, you know, people are trying to go in this locker room or that locker room. So it is a problem, but that, you know, down at the Marble Palace, they tend to say, hey, this isn't really a problem. We don't need to be doing this. So what all happened behind the scenes there?
Well, you know, it's all said and done. Some of this stems all the way back to 2015, when we were able to pass a religious freedom bill that a number of LGBTQ individuals thought somehow would infringe on their rights. And so they all came to the Capitol and they protested and carried on. And I think the governor and some other lawmakers decided, you know what, we don't want those people back out here, and the best way to keep them home is to not run any legislation that aggravates them. And so early on, the governor said, we don't need a bathroom privacy bill. It's just a common sense kind of bill, but the governor and others said, not necessary, not a problem, but are we going to wait until some little girl is molested in a bathroom by some man before we say it's a problem? I thought we were about preventing bad things from happening rather than waiting for it to happen. And see, once the governor made his pronouncement that this is not a problem and we don't need this, then far too many lawmakers just kind of sat down and said, well, okay, then we won't do anything.
Yeah.
And that I find very disappointing.
Talking with Senator Gary Stubblefield, people going into locker rooms they got no business going into. Do we really govern ourselves? Do we really, we the people, have a say? Or is it Walmart, or like you said, the NCAA or the SEC?
Well, it's come down to money over safety as far as I'm concerned. We had, the government kept saying we had no real issues, but that was not exactly true, because I was dealing with 2 or 3 issues in my own district, and I knew of several others in other districts who were having to deal with the same kind of thing. And some of these schools felt powerless. They were going to be sued, and they were told that they would lose the lawsuit. And they really were looking for somebody to give them some advice, because we had nothing in statute that would protect them. And, we were just trying to bring it back to local control and let them, decide what's best for them. But we were even shut out from doing that. And I think it's just come down to basically money is controlling everything, and public safety is being put on the back burner. And I don't think that's what the founders intended for this country to be like. I really don't.
Yeah.
The governor must talk about the facts. And when he came out and he had to cut the budget, he said, it's not a spending problem, it's a revenue problem.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I said, totally misleading and deceiving people as to say, it's not my fault. It's you people's fault that you didn't send me enough money.
But then there were other bills that probably should have passed through committees and made it to the House floor, but they were not heard, or they were failed in committee. So there were Republicans that could have supported the bill, but I don't think they fully understood it. And some of them came to me privately and said, hey, look, I've got a lot of immigrant, maybe illegals in my district, and so I want to be really careful not to come out and look like I'm, opposing their presence here.
Representative John Payton from District 64, what was your impression of the session down there?
The tire tax on used tires, they're calling it a rim fee, but the bottom line is it created a lot of new regulation trying to track those tires from cradle to grave that nobody really has a grasp on what it's going to cost. And worse than that, being in the automobile business all my life, I see it as destroying the supply chain that moves those tires from the first owner to the second and third owner. And, it's all done in the name of recycling, but the best way to recycle a tire is to put it on another automobile and wear it out. If the regulations that we impose, not just the tax, but the regulation destroys that supply chain, good tires are going to be going to the recycling centers instead of being worn out. And so I think it compounds the problem they're trying to solve. Of course, it's more money out of the people's pockets, and who knows if it'll be enough to cover the expense of tracking them from cradle to grave.
We have State Representative Nelda Speaks. What was your impression of the session?
Well, it's never as conservative as I'd like for it to be, Paul. But overall, I think that it was a pretty good session. Sometimes you feel like about all you get done is just holding off maybe tax increases and some of that, and then we did get to do that. Of course, there were things that did get slipped through and happen. You win some and you lose some. But I was thankful that the gas tax hike, it's $200 million per year, that we've got that stopped.
You notice how when he comes out, okay, we have money, no plan for highway. I mean, we've had these task forces down there with some good people served on them and try to do some things. But it's all about the leadership down there and the governor. We have this highway that came up with a plan, a touches plan to use surplus money for highways, except now we don't have a surplus. Okay, and looking at future years, it looks worse than that. And then you have higher ed things down there. Well, now there's something in the paper that, students now are going to get hit with 2% and 3% increases. You have health care task force, whatever you call it. And the result was this last session was an appropriation bill that set an all-time record limit for spending. So, I mean, I've been saying these things and criticizing them because they wouldn't listen. I said 2 years ago, when the governor came into office, over 2 years ago, that they were spending too much. I met with Jim Hendren. I met with Michael Lamoureux, met with them and said, you know what, guys, you guys don't get a hold of this, we're going to have problems.
The internet sales tax for the people, we were able to stop that one. I'm not sure whether that's going to be brought back up in this special session. You hear different things.
State Representative Scott Baltz, what did the governor's office tell you?
The governor's office actually contacted Representative Joe Tett and said that if I didn't vote for Senate Bill 140, that the panic button would never be funded again.
So you voted against the internet sales tax. You did.
I did.
You did the opposite of what the governor wanted you to do.
Yeah.
In fact, I've been going to the Capitol really since Bill Clinton was governor, and I think in many ways this legislative body was one of the least independent thinking bodies that I've seen in a long time, because many times, Paul, I would ask a lawmaker about sponsoring a bill, and the first thing they would say was, well, let me go check. Well, check with who? Well, I need to check with House leadership, or I need to check with the governor's office, or I need to check with this group of people. And I'm like, can't you think for yourself? Why do you have to go get permission to file a bill? I thought you were, a strong, independent person out here. But we saw that far too many times. Or a person would file a bill, and then the leadership would say, don't you run that bill. And they would just wilt in the face of that and not run the bill. I had people promise to run bills that we wanted, and then, they'd say, well, I've decided not to run it. Well, why? Well, leadership really doesn't want that. And that's just the end of it then. And so I find that very disappointing. The other thing that concerns me is I'm afraid that the people that the establishment at the Capitol, House leadership, the governor, Senate leadership, and others, I'm afraid the folks that they recruit to run for these vacant seats may be people that are even more so that way, even less independent, even less think on their own, stand on their own kind of people. And so if we end up with a legislative body where a few people say, hey, you have to do what I tell you to do because I got you elected, I've got a PAC over here that's funding you, and you better sit down and be quiet, and you'll do what I tell you to do, then we have lost that autonomy of the legislative branch, and the separate the power then is being consolidated in the hands of just a few people who are able to order everybody else around. Now,
Senator Terry Rice is with us from District 9. Impression of the session 2017.
In one word, it would be frustrated. And all sessions can get frustrating. This one was counting fiscal sessions, which started the first term that I came in the House and served 6 years before moving to the Senate. But this one was, to me, the most frustrating that I've had, and especially through committees I was on, Judiciary and Senate state agencies, I kept thinking, man, our roads are falling apart. We need to come up with a long-term highway plan. We need to be shrinking government. We're almost 2.5 years into a new administration that has people voted to lessen government, and I realize it's a process. It takes time, but we need to be doing that. And there's so many things that I wanted to see addressed, cutting back on this bloated, inflated Medicaid spending. Colleague told me that it was $3.2 billion just a few short years ago. Now it's $7.2 billion here in Arkansas.
State Representative Greg Letting, he is a Democrat from Fayetteville. What was your impression of the session 2017?
The most different of the ones that I've served. I mean, I came in 2011. The last time Democrats had a majority, it was a slim majority, and this was the first session where we were in a super minority. So
tried to make sure I had a proper mindset before going into session. I was going to have to look for ways to work with colleagues across the aisle, and I think I was pretty successful. This was actually one of my most productive sessions in terms of legislation.
We found ourselves as conservatives still on the defense instead of being on the offense, and trying to fight the fuel tax and the internet tax. So I guess the way I'd sum it up was it's a missed opportunity.
A missed opportunity. We were playing defense on things you think we wouldn't be playing defense on.
Exactly. I mean, instead of proactively reducing government's impact on our lives, I found myself fighting new and increased taxes and fees, new and increased regulation. Liberty is still in jeopardy.
What you cooking? It smells familiar.
I'm cooking something amazing, new and different, and you're going to love it, babe.
Really? It seems like we've had this dish before.
Don't believe me? Come and taste it for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm right. This tastes just like Obamacare.
No, actually, it's the new private option. I call this fantastic new dish Arkansas Works.
That's odd, because it looks and tastes just like Obamacare.
Why do you always have to be so critical? I'm in here cooking, trying to do something nice for the family.
Because I thought we talked about this before. I don't like Obamacare.
You just need to give it another chance.
So you admit it's the same?
No, it's different. It's Arkansas Works.
Let me ask you something. Does it smell like Obamacare?
Yes.
Does it taste like Obamacare?
I suppose so.
Are you using the same ingredients to make it as you used to make Obamacare?
Yes.
Then how is your so-called new dish, Arkansas Works, not Obamacare?
Well, let me explain, honey. You will remember, recently, I had my name legally changed at your request, right?
Yes, I know. You had it changed from Duke to Rover. I dislike the name Duke, and I think Rover sounds so much more personally responsible.
Well, now that I'm called Rover instead of Duke, I believe I can take the same recipe and ingredients and create a dish with the same smell and taste from before.
Okay.
And because of my name change, you will love it.
I'm not buying it. And I just realized the name Duke and Rover are both common names for dogs. PHP Parody.
Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to Talk Radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise. Hey, folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell Program.
Mr. Dan Borm is with us from Patriots VAC 746. Dan, good to talk to you again.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul, from the Boston Mountains. It's a beautiful day.
It is.
I tell you what, it's starting to feel a lot like Christmas up here in the mountains.
I bet. I mean, it's starting to feel like that everywhere. I was just on the Facebook post, and I was saying that, this is my favorite time of year. I mean, it always has been, it always will be, and I can't even fathom not getting as excited about the Christmas season. I know some people don't, but I mean, I certainly do. So, Dan, do you have big plans for Christmas?
We generally don't make just huge plans, but Christmas for me, it takes me a while to get into the quote Christmas spirit. But Christmas for me is being with family. My daughters are pretty much grown now, and yes, they still love Christmas, but now it's my two grandsons that I really enjoy watching, and to see their eyes twinkling and sparkling because of Christmas time. But I just love being with family. When my side of the family, when we all get together, we have a good feast together. We just enjoy fellowship with one another. We play music, we sing Christmas songs, and we just have a good time.
Well, I want to.
But
go ahead. Yeah, no, I want to talk to you about more of what Christmas means to you here just a little bit, later in this segment. But there's been a few things that have happened since we last had you on.
Right.
We were talking about carrying guns, in a church building the last time, and there had just been a church shooting in Tennessee, and it didn't get a lot of coverage. And we were talking about that. Arkansas has a law that gives churches the freedom to set their own policy. And then after we had you on, there was the terrible tragedy, many more casualties down in Texas. And since then, the issue really catapulted. You had Senator Brian King was mentioned on Fox News about his law to give Arkansas churches the right to set their own policy. And you yourself are a pastor, and so I'm just wondering if that frenzy, made its way back to you.
The frenzy did make its way back to even the church that I pastor. We're a small congregation, but you look at that church down in Texas, that is a rural Southern Baptist church. Those people, my heart breaks for them right now. Here it is, Christmas time, and those people are still suffering. They're grieving terribly, and it should have never happened. The thing is, yes, it came back even into our church, and what we did, we just sat down as a church, and we discussed what we were going to do. And basically, we just have a rotation of men who decided that they're going to rotate each Sunday to sit in the foyer area, watch the doors, and just give a little extra protection in that area. And then the policy in our church is it's between you and God. If you want to carry a weapon, that's between you and God. That's your choice. There is no set policy as to who's going to carry and who cannot carry. If you so desire to carry, you can. If you would rather not, you don't have to. That's your choice. And that is the thing. And look at the churches through Arkansas. Each denomination, the way that they take care of their business, they all do it just a little bit differently. And so whether there's a board that makes these decisions in the church that you attend, the thing is, people need to be able to protect themselves, whether they're at home or whether they're at church. Now, there's been a lot of churches, since this has happened, they have been in contact with their local city police, their local sheriff's department. They have asked officers to come to their church and to speak to them concerning an active shooter, how to handle that, what they should do, policies maybe that they should put in place, and that's great. If the churches desire to do that, to get some extra information, that's a wonderful thing. But the idea, one thing, and I even saw I saw the outline of one where the law enforcement was teaching the people to retreat and to take cover, to evacuate. And I'm thinking, okay, in a very small church like I attend, the building is small. If everyone tries to evacuate, we don't have really a big back door. We have a very small door toward the the front of the auditorium, and everybody just piles up in there like sardines. It's just going to make
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
Welcome those of you watching at paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, or our YouTube page, The Paul Harrell Program. This is the set where we shoot our Wednesday weekly videos for our Patreon subscribers. And if you want to get on board and get extra Paul Harrell Program content because you want to partner with us, you believe the show has value, you want to help us keep the show on the air, you want to help us grow the show, you want to help us make videos like this one even better, then you need to seriously think about subscribing to Patreon. It's patreon.com/thephp. That's patreon.com/thephp. Get extra content today, partner with us, and help build the Liberty Machine. We're asking you to partner with us for as little as $5 a month. Now, you can go up from there. You can go to $10 a month and get extra features, or $25 a month and become a Conduit Media Insider. But for $5 a month, you can really help us out. You can get extra content. You can see what we talk about on sets like this, and I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Back in a moment.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Students can accomplish what they want, and the university can accomplish what they want without having these draconian restrictions imposed. And one of the real problems with these is that almost always the university has authority to grant the permit without any kind of restriction, and that's called unbridled discretion. It's unconstitutional because it gives a university or a government official the right to say who can speak and who can't, and they can favor one viewpoint over another. And we don't want that type of the First Amendment does not allow that type of power to be given to an official.
You know, Tyson, the Alliance Defending Freedom is a very prominent organization nationally, and you have not only yourself, but you have quite a few distinguished board members. Could you speak to that just a bit about, let people know how, you're not just a kind of a loose group that runs around the state, that this is a distinguished group of attorneys and business people who are defending our First Amendment?
Absolutely. We've been around for about 24 years, and in the last we've won 6 Supreme Court arguments in the last 6 years. We just argued one last week. We've got another one scheduled in February. We're one of the most successful and respected, Supreme Court advocates on First Amendment issues. And we deal with, in my area, the Center for Academic Freedom University issues, but we also deal with pro-life issues. We also deal with protecting the churches and religious freedom areas, and then also rights of conscience. And, we were formed by some prominent ministries, James Dobson and a number of others that came together and said, we need an organization that will fight for our freedom of religion and our First Amendment free speech rights.
We're talking with Tyson Langhofer from the Alliance Defending Freedom. He's senior counsel. He's involved in this representing Ashlyn Hoggard, an Arkansas State University student. I'm so glad that you guys exist. I want to echo what Dan was just saying, because honestly, when you go issue by issue with like an average Arkansan, we're very conservative. We believe in the Bill of Rights. We believe in the United States Constitution. We're not afraid of freedom. And so when you mentioned earlier, Tyson, that this is a public institution, they're getting our money, okay? They're getting taxpayer dollars, and then to have, a policy that just is not consistent with the opinions of a vast majority of Arkansans, and I can say that with a lot of confidence. I hope that this lawsuit nudges them in the right direction to say, you know what, we don't need to institutionalize kids to, get used to the free speech zones that the government, has. We've had leftists talk about that, that needs to be a thing in just normal public life, not to mention universities. So I just, again, Tyson, want to thank you for what you guys are doing, and hopefully Arkansas State will make the right move here.
Absolutely, and that's our goal as well. We just want a constitutional policy, and frankly, this shouldn't be a controversial issue. This applies. The First Amendment applies to liberals, it applies to conservatives, libertarians, socialists. Everybody benefits from the right to freedom of speech, and this will open up the marketplace for all students of all voices at Arkansas State, and that's our goal.
All right, we appreciate it, Tyson Langhofer.
All right.
Be safe. Have a Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Thanks. Merry Christmas to you.
All righty, folks. We're going to go to break. We're going to be back with State Representative Dan Sullivan, talk a little bit more about this and this poster you got here that says, "In God We Trust." So don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to be back in just a moment.
Merry Christmas from the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation
say this after listening to Tyson Langhofer. Pretty sure ASU is going to have to change that policy of theirs.
I think so too, and I think they're willing. I mean, I think sometimes these policies are written back before any of these board members were on. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been an issue. When I
the maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing. And it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell Program.
To do that, to get some extra information, that's a wonderful thing. But the idea, one thing, and I even saw I saw the outline of one where the law enforcement was teaching the people to retreat and to take cover to evacuate. And I'm thinking, okay, in a very small church like I attend, the building is small. If everyone tries to evacuate, we don't have really a big back door. We have a very small door toward the front of the auditorium, and everybody just piles up in there like sardines. You're just going to make it extremely easy for the shooter to wipe everyone out. And then they said, scream real loud and throw your hymnal at him. And I'm like,
now, hang on.
Kidding me?
This was done where? This is law enforcement training on how to just being fish in a barrel?
Yes, it was. This happened in Crawford County. I saw it myself on Mr. Wayne Helm sent me the outline. And they said use force as a last resort.
Hang on, law enforcement in Crawford County were telling parishioners to throw hymnals.
That's right. And look at a lot of the large churches; they don't even use hymnals anymore. They use, a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And the words are up on the big screen. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, And they said, having a weapon is just going to draw attention to you. I said, well, it's probably going to draw attention to me because I'm going to be pulling the trigger. But, is throwing a hymnal at the man and screaming not going to draw attention to you?
Yeah, and some of these
people,
people,
really
some of these,
mind.
and some of these deranged people. I mean, if you know anything about these psychotic individuals that end up doing mass shootings like this, running around and being terrorized and screaming sometimes can actually, that's exactly kind of what they want, to accomplish. Yeah. And so it's been said before, the only thing that ends whatever fantasy or anger or aggression that this person is acting out is sending bullets back in his direction. And so I'm so glad that in Arkansas, we do have the freedom as individual congregations to set your own policy about how you want to secure, the congregation. I just think the freedom is the best policy there.
Absolutely, and I'm very thankful that even when I was looking back at Senate Bill 71 in the 89th General Assembly, that the Church Protection Act that was passed in February of 2013, that's even built upon that, the government really just has absolutely no business determining what churches can do concerning security. And I'm really thankful now that it's been passed that each church can design their own policy and decide what they're going to do concerning security. Mm-hmm. But as for the church that I pastor, everyone knows if they want to carry, they can carry, and they don't have to get permission from anyone else. That's between them and God.
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, well, so Dan Borum, like you said, it is Christmas time. Now, you are a pastor, okay?
Absolutely.
So, do you have any do you have any favorite Christmas sermons that you've delivered, or go-tos? Obviously, you keep it to the text of the story of the birth of Christ, but do you have any favorites where maybe you use other text or anything like that, other scriptures?
I guess my all-time favorite is out of the Gospel of Luke concerning when Gabriel, the messenger angel Gabriel, came to Mary. Mary wasn't very old. She was just a teenage girl. And what people have to consider, Gabriel did not go around and tell everyone else what was going on. Now, think about her, before her and Joseph, before they culminated the marriage, before they came together to become as one, she was already showing that she was pregnant. It even had him messed up until Gabriel came and explained to him what was going on. Now, consider the talk that's going on around her and what people are saying. Her faith in what God said was extraordinary. And her husband's faith, Joseph, to take her and to take her as a wife, to not divorce her according to the law of Moses, was also an extraordinary act of faith on his part. And that's what I love for people to see, is the faith of these two people to obey God and to be willing to serve God regardless of what their social status may be because of it. I love that.
Wow. Yeah, that is exactly that. You don't hear a lot about that.
No, you do not.
Gosh, yeah, that is really, really good. Because, I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking, I'm like, well, I am glad that Gabriel did at least provide some explanation to Joseph.
Absolutely. But he was concerning to put her, he was already thinking that he was going to put her away. Yeah. Joseph was mad. Mm-hmm. His feelings was hurt. And, when Gabriel tells Mary that you are praised among women, that the word praised, if I remember right, is an adjective, and it means you are a praised one among women. And what that means is her position of being the one to bear the Messiah was a praised position among the women of Israel. They didn't know that she was bearing the Messiah. It was the position of bearing the Messiah that was a praised position.
Yeah, and there's so much to that. The fact that, you know, she was looked down upon, and yet, you know, just so opposite, and how, you know, God just, you know, makes fools out of the wise, and you know what I'm saying, and that is so good. That's really good. So Dan, in general, I'll give you the last word here. We're about out of time. Just Christmas, you know, I know you mentioned family and everything, but I'll give you more time. What does Christmas mean to you?
Well, we know that the United States is a melting pot of culture and traditions when it comes to Christmas. In fact, this country at one time didn't even celebrate Christmas. But since man has set it aside to celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior, I love to focus upon that and what the birth of our Lord and Savior means, and the fact that I want people to realize he is not still a baby in the manger. Yes, we celebrate his birth, and we smile, and we're touched by the birth and the baby Jesus, but the point that I love to drive and what I love to reflect upon at Christmas time with my family is that baby was nailed to the cross as a man at 33 and a half years old, and nailed your sins and my sins to the cross so that we can have eternal life. That's what I love to think upon and reflect upon when it comes to Christmas, is the gift that God gave us through his son, Jesus Christ, Paul.
Dan Borum, I appreciate you being on the program. Patriots Vac 746. You have a Merry Christmas, Dan.
Merry Christmas to you, Paul, and hope you have a Happy New Year, brother.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. All right, be safe, folks.
Paul.
Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com.
Our nation's motto, "In God We Trust," first appeared in 1864. Secretary of Treasury Chase stated that no nation can be strong except in the strength of God, or safe except in his defense. And the trust of our people in God should be declared on our nation's coins. President Dwight Eisenhower then adopted "In God We Trust" as our nation's official motto in 1956. Act 911, enacted by the 2017 Arkansas General Assembly, states that if funds are available, durable framed copies of our nation's motto, "In God We Trust," shall be placed in public school classrooms, libraries, or any publicly maintained facilities. Posters may be donated or provided through voluntary contributions. If you're interested, please contact me at 870-275-2929. This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
It's a PHP parody.
Hey, man. You got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good. Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP Parody.
Hey folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell program.
Welcome to the program. We have in studio Dr. Jim Phillips is with us. He is a dentist. Dr. Phillips, welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much.
All right, so this segment is kind of a long time coming. I've been covering a story that started back, I guess this was a post back on October 23rd. There was a dentist who posted this on Facebook, and it kind of went viral. Governor's office breaks with tradition, rejects Arkansas State Dental Association nominee for dental board. That
is accurate.
Okay. And it went in an unprecedented move in modern times. The office of governor has rejected the recommendation of the Arkansas State Dental Association for the Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners. Now, you, Dr. Phillips, are a former president of the Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners.
That's correct.
So I'm glad that you came on the program. They rejected the recommended person. Tell us how this happened. You were telling me some of the background, and I want you to be as specific as possible.
Okay. The etiology of this actually began 5 or 6 years ago when a local orthodontist, the name of Ben Burris, decided that he wanted to do more than just orthodontics in his practice. He wanted to do general dentistry. At that time, state law, rules, and regulations prohibited a licensed specialist from doing general dentistry. Obviously, I'm an oral maxillofacial surgeon, and I haven't done a filling since I was in dental school, which is longer than I'd like to remember, 50 years. So you wouldn't want to come into my office and have me do a fill-in or a crown preparation on you, because it would be probably a disaster. So this is the reasoning behind the state board, that if somebody restricts their practice to a single part of dentistry, then that's by law what they need to stay doing. Dr. Burris decided that he wanted to do general dentistry and hygiene specifically in his practice. Well, this didn't sit well with the general dentist here in town, because he would take their patients and do hygiene in his orthodontic office. Sometimes he would do things that they didn't want to do as far as treatment plans. But the bottom line is this became a significant issue. He was brought before the State Board of Dental Examiners, which basically voted against him and censored him for practicing outside of his specialty. Well, apparently this didn't sit very well with Dr. Burris, because he enlisted the help of a senator, Jeremy Hutchinson.
The governor's nephew.
The governor's nephew. I understand that this was a cash transfer to initiate this legislation to what we call Open the Dental Practice Act. In other words, the Dental Practice Act is like any other law in Arkansas. It can be amended, but it takes a legislative initiation of an act to amend this. We guard the Dental Practice Act because we don't want other people coming in and making laws that the dentists have to follow that are non-dentist. The dentists over the last 100 years have pretty well protected the rights of their patients, and that's always been the number one thing, is protecting the rights of the patients. Didn't have anything to do with making money. It didn't have anything to do with who was giving the services. It was just the patient always came first. We were always concerned, the general dentist, that if the Dental Practice Act was opened by somebody that was a non-dentist, legislation would occur that was not in the favor of the patient, and that's exactly what happened. The law was introduced by Senator Hutchinson. It was passed last year, and it significantly changed the Dental Practice Act that had been in place for 100 years.
Okay, that right there is a lot. So what? How did that law? So you're saying something was changed in the law that affected the governor's power and authority to reject or accept what the recommendation of the Dental Association is?
That's exactly right. The original law, again, the one we're working under, was initiated in 1955, stated that the governor would appoint the members of the State Board of Dental Examiners on advice and consent of the separate districts. For instance, we vetted Lauren Harmon, who is a wonderful general dentist here, to be our representative to the state board this term. The terms are 5 years. She actually took time out of our practice to went and sit in on some of the state board meetings to prepare herself, and then we got the notice that she was not going to serve. So the new law that was sponsored by Senator Jeremy Hutchinson reversed the way the assignments were made, where the governor on his own can just decide without the advice and consent of the district.
Okay, so the next question then would be, we're talking, by the way, with Dr. Jim Phillips, past president of the Arkansas State Board of Dental Examiners. The next question would be, then why would the governor, I understand now he has the power because of legislative maneuvering, but why would he reject it? Why would he go with somebody, according to this? Instead, the governor's office appointed Dr. Richard L. Smith of North Little Rock, a non-member of the ASDA and current employee of Monarch Dental. According to records, Dr. Smith has been found by the ASDA to be in violation of the Practice Act on 3 occasions in the early 1990s, the first being overprescribing of narcotics. Why would Governor Hutchinson go with that guy instead of who you guys recommended?
Well, that's the $64,000 question, and I actually can answer that. The organization to which Dr. Burris was attached is called the Association for Dental Support Organization, and it is actually a national organization lobbying for corporate dentistry. And Dr. Burris was a member of this, and there are many corporate dental outlets, if you want to call them, here in Arkansas, and they wanted basically a seat at the table. They wanted to have somebody on the State Board of Dental Examiners that could sway the laws toward the practice of corporate dentistry. So this was the chance to get somebody on there. I'm not sure, well, I am sure that Dr. Smith was not well vetted. I don't know how his name came up, but obviously,
he wasn't
they didn't do a very good job of deciding who was going to represent the Association of Dental Support Organizations on the board. There's probably quite a few of really competent dentists that belong to corporate dentistry in Arkansas, and unfortunately, Dr. Smith, who has a fairly significant record of having his license suspended 3 times, was just a poor choice.
Yeah.
You know, given what's going on in the world today, everybody is saying, well, that happened in the early 90s and he's changed, and we've seen a whole bunch of politicians fall lately because of things that happened 30 years ago. I'm not sure that personally I think that makes a whole lot of difference, that having your license suspended for narcotics issues doesn't sit well with most of the general dentists.
Yeah, I would agree. So it seems to me that there's a divide in the dental community. You have the corporate side of things, and then you have maybe just sole ownership or maybe limited partnership types of practices. And so I guess this is kind of a jockeying of who's going to get representation. And this is the corporate, kind of set up shop by night operations that are now going to have representation when in the past they didn't. So the question is, especially considering he was vetted so poorly. Let me just be honest, Dr. Phillips. I'm told that in many of these instances, you sit down with the governor's people, and you get informed that, hey, well, we're open for donations, and so the question is was this decision made because of campaign contributions or something like that?
Well, I think there's absolutely no doubt that there was.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Spoke with folks at ASU. They were very willing to sit down and meet with our local legislators and work through it. And I know they have told me they are consistently for free speech. So I anticipate working through this, but it'll be fun.
Well, and it might trickle down to over to the U of A too, if they have a similar policy.
Yeah, it might even trickle down to the Second Amendment.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, all right. So that's a great point. When you had the concept, I mean, the left said guns on college campuses, but I mean, originally that bill that that turned into what I consider pretty much of a mess, but it was just pretty simple. Professors, if you had a concealed carry, could carry. And the universities were totally against it, and so it is interesting. I mean, if we don't like the Second Amendment, okay, and we don't like the First Amendment. So, I mean, what kind of values and policies do they really have?
Well, hopefully this will continue to spur that conversation. If we have free speech zones, where is going to be our Second Amendment zone, or where isn't our Second Amendment zone?
Yeah.
And of course, I'm
the whole campus.
The whole campus.
It's a gun-free zone.
Yeah. So we'll see, but it's a great opportunity for us to start to have that conversation in a new context, where we're looking at our First Amendment, our Second Amendment, and our other rights that are given by God, that we are having restrictions placed on them that other men place on me, whether it's First or Second Amendment or others.
So we're hopeful that Arkansas State changes this policy, and I think you are. I think you're doing a great job being a mediator. It sounds like they're calling you and everything else.
Sure, and I really hope that we have some board members. I know most of the board members fairly well. I've known them for a number of years, and I know my competitor, or my opponent I guess, has one of the board members is one of his primary sponsors. So I hope they will reach out and take the lead on this. And I know there are other people that support my opponent that should be taking the lead on this too.
Yeah. Well, if you look at your opponent, he's entirely funded by healthcare interests. So the new medical school, for example, at Arkansas State, you've got, I'm sure, a lot of, it just seems very strange.
And he's entirely silent.
Yeah, exactly. I can't get a hold of him.
And what a great opportunity for all of us to enter in that discussion with ASU, board members, legislators, administration, and the public, to let our university know how you feel about our First and Second Amendment rights.
Yeah, I think it's certainly something we've got to have this discussion.
Absolutely.
So I'm really glad that the Alliance Defending Freedom is involved, and it sounds like they're going to have to change their policy.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've met with them several times. I'm really proud of our college Republicans. You talk about some young people stepping up to the plate. Folks, again, if you get a chance to support them and let them know how much you appreciate them, these are the kinds of young people that we need to be supporting. They're passionate, they're knowledgeable, and they're engaged.
Tell me about this. This is, show this to the camera. Folks, I'll describe it to you. I'll listen on radio. It just says, "In God We Trust," with the American flag right next to the Arkansas flag. So what is this, Dan?
Yeah, the legislature in this past session passed legislation to put our national motto, "In God We Trust," in all the classrooms in the state of Arkansas. We're working with a group, Heritage Foundation, and I've got 500 of these that I've purchased. Of course, they're only 75 cents, so it's not a big deal. But we are, I'm ready to put these in every classroom in District 53, which is Jonesboro, Brookland, Bay, Riverside, Buffalo Island.
You're listening to the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, the Paul Harrell Program.
Hey, folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell Program.
And so the question is was this decision made because of, campaign contributions or something like that?
Well, I think there's absolutely no doubt that there was, and I can't tell you when, having seen the money change hands, but the story is that this was a substantial donation to the governor's campaign fund through this this national organization. Mm-hmm. There's no really other reason because, again, all the general dentists in this state are working for patients' rights. They want to make sure that the patients are treated correctly. When you have a corporate entity, the patient's rights don't come first. It's the corporate bottom line that comes first. And so we just feel as a group, and I can't speak for the Arkansas State Dental Association or the state board, but I can speak for the dentist in this area. We all feel like that's not the way we want to treat our patients.
Mm-hmm. And that was actually my next question. Any potential political ramifications? I mean, is it just the dentists in Northeast Arkansas that are upset, or is this like the entire? That's a pretty big voting block, and the governor's, probably going to have a primary opponent in the Republican primary.
Well, that's a great point that you make. We're left without representation in Northeast. The next 5 years at least, we're not going to have a representative on the state board. This is a huge problem for us in the Northeast District. And now the other districts are going, whoa, well, what's going to happen when the next district is elected? Are we going to have a say in that? Well, obviously they're not. So there's 5 positions because there's 5 districts. So, it's a possibility that as long as Governor Hutchinson's making the selections that there won't be any representation from the different districts. So, yeah, this is a real problem, but we're going to help solve this problem because we're going to get into politics. We are a small group in Northeast. We're 180 dentists, and across the state it's about 1,200, but we see a lot of patients. And, we are not happy with what's going on.
Yeah.
And we were going to let our patients know that this governor has not treated the State Board of Dental Examiners appropriately.
All right. Well, I appreciate I don't know if this is a first step or not, but I appreciate you coming on the program and being willing to talk about it, because talking about it is what gets people engaged to hopefully make different choices in the future. So, Doctor,
thank you very much.
Dr. Jim Phillips, I appreciate it, sir. That's great. It's great to meet you. Past president of Christmas, Merry Christmas. Thank you guys so much for being with us. Phone number 870-275-9799. I'd like to welcome back to the program. We have Brenda Vassar-Taylor is on the line. She is a co-founder of Conduit for Commerce, but she's also the best Arkansas tax attorney in the entire state. Brenda, welcome back.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here, and I appreciate the confidence.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the truth. That's what we're in the business of speaking truth here. So, but I wanted to have you on because, the tax plan passed in D.C., the reform. And so, I'm sure you've been following this as a tax professional. So what were your thoughts on this monumental, passage yesterday?
Well, I have been very happy all day long. I just can't tell you. It's a great thing for everyone in this country, certainly not just my clients, but I would say that it's more beneficial to those who would never have an occasion to visit with me than it will really be to my clients. And I just would like to point out 3 things. Like you said, I've been practicing tax law for over 30 years. And to get to see this kind of opportunity for our country, it just almost leaves me speechless with joy, saying at last again. But right off, I don't know how many of you have gone online and looked at how your taxes will be affected, using the tax calculator. But I would predict that most people will see a reduction right off just because of the cut in the tax rates. But those who really, work a little bit, but they don't work enough to even get a tax refund, if they have children at home, where in the past they have been getting $1,000 per child just as a welfare check for filing that tax return, they now will get $1,400 per child. And then everyone will no longer be penalized for under the health care penalty. If you don't, we're no longer under that mandatory health insurance tax, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so that's a tax benefit for everyone. I don't care what, some of the Democrats want to sell us.
Yeah, and it was really incredible to see what happened after the press conference yesterday. AT&T says we're going to give a $1,000 bonus to 200,000 employees. You had other people doing it. They also announced an investment, of $1 billion. And what's funny about that is the Democrats, in my opinion, are just kind of left speechless, and they just don't look very good right now because they've always said that the notion that if you give a tax break to a business, they're not going to invest it. They're going to keep it all for themselves. And yet they immediately say that they're going to invest it back into the economy. I mean, it was just an amazing time.
I may have mentioned this on the show the other day. I had the occasion to look at a client's 5 years of their tax return as they were trying to put a value on their company to sell it. And I could see as those revenues went up for that business, and this is a sole proprietor, a small mom and pop, and as those revenues increased, their expenses increased, but primarily in payment of additional, higher wages, benefits to their employees. I mean, that's what business owners do. They pass it, so much of it on to the workers, to their employees, the people that make their businesses go. Could I read a quote from Senator Bob Corcoran of Tennessee that was in the paper this week?
Yes.
He said, "I realize this is a bet on our country's enterprising spirit, and that it's a bet I'm willing to make," Corker said. "The bill embodies a long-standing Republican philosophy that lower taxes for businesses will trigger economic growth and job creation for Americans, eventually paying for themselves with higher tax revenue. But skeptical Democrats are likely to oppose the legislation unanimously," was the quote in the paper. And then right under that quote, there was the statement, "Under this bill, the working class, middle class, wealthy corporations make out like bandits," Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York said. "It is just the opposite of what America needs, and Republicans will rue the day that this passed." I mean, I'm so sad to see, just black and white difference in what these two senators say about this bill. But, I'm with Corker. I bet with the enterprising spirit and unchained from higher taxes, our economy will do things it hasn't done since 1984.
Gosh. And that's what's so, when you look at, what's gone on this entire year with Donald Trump and what kind of just looked like maybe, the agenda of the American people just is not going to, we're not going to have any accomplishments. Then all of a sudden, it's like kind of a, I don't know, it's kind of like the dam that the media has put up. I just feel like it's breached. And I feel like it in a good way. It's like something happened yesterday, and even the media they're going to try to deflect and make up new stories. But this is a huge thing, and more money. I mean, the bottom line is once people see their paychecks go up here in a couple of weeks, if you're talking about employees, because now all of a sudden, right? Let me ask you that: is that what's going to happen? Because now the estimates or what's the withholdings rather, that's going to change pretty immediately, right?
Oh, yes. This starts January 1, 2018, and when people fill out their form to say how much you withhold, I mean, most people, and there's a percentage, there's a really good op-ed in the paper today by Senator Tom Cotton. He did a great job, used some numbers, to help people kind of understand what's going on. But most people would use the standard deduction, which has been just over $12,000. That's going to go to $24,000. Not only is their tax rate reduced, but then they get a higher deduction. So that's what's calculated when people, fill out how much you need to withhold annually, or ever how often someone might do that with their employer. You know, it'll be it might be a few days or a few weeks before we get the new forms and everyone's able to transition over.
Yeah.
But employees are going to feel this rather immediately.
I agree. And so, what about the corporate side? See, you know, I know maybe there's some moderate Republicans that don't want to talk about it, but I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that this corporate tax rate is getting cut, you know, from where it is down to 21%, and that's going to be huge.
Now, let's think about when someone wants to argue that that's not a good thing. Think about how many times our Arkansas governor has said, we're going to do economic development, and we're going to, if someone will come here, we will reduce their taxes because they're going to help our economy grow. And so, you know, you can travel all over the United States, and that's what you'll see, different governments, lower-level government, you know, all the way to the federal government, offering incentives to corporations. We'll lower your tax if you'll come here because you'll cause our business to boom. Now, they're proving the fact right there. So to reduce that tax rate from 35% to 21% is going to be a huge economic boom. Now, I would like to go ahead and transition to Arkansas. I don't know how much longer you want to visit with me.
We've got longer, but you and I are both fans of just eliminating the Arkansas corporate tax completely.
Well, if you look at how much revenue that the corporate tax brings to the state, it's a little over 300 tax incentives that our government gives away. You'll find that it's a pretty near a wash. And so why would we want to let our politicians step in front of an entrepreneur's ability to grow his business? If he or she are in a situation where their company, their corporation is paying income tax, that means they're successful. And why take those dollars from them, give them to a new company coming in to basically take the tax-paying corporation's employees and put them over to the new company that we're going to bring in from China or wherever, and give them their money to steal your employees? I mean, that's sort of crazy. If you would leave the money where the guy's doing well, our economy would really boom. And if you eliminated the corporate income tax in Arkansas, you'll have so many companies coming into Arkansas because of that. It will be a new day has dawned. You know, that's what I would say.
Well, in keeping with the Arkansas, we've got the tax force, or the task force on tax relief. They're supposed to be out with a preliminary report, I guess. And so, what are your thoughts on? I mean, a lot of people have we're like, what's going to be in it? I mean, what have they really done to reach any conclusions at this point? What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I have heard from the people who are usually the ones who you can sort of judge what the opinion may read, you know, when you talk to them or listen to them coming into this. I would predict that they are going to find a way to broaden the tax base. In other words, get more taxpayers, eliminate exemptions, which means they would create more revenue coming into the state, and they will call it a tax cut. Now, to me, a tax cut is when the state would bring in less revenue than it did the year before. But our state, because of Medicaid expansion, is in a bad circumstance. Its revenues are not looking like they're going to meet what we promised or what we would like to spend our money on. So the only way that this administration could accomplish that in a secure way and make those Medicaid expansion payments that are coming due is to raise more revenue. And this tax force has never promised tax cuts. And I had said, you know, I had written an article for Conduit for Commerce that, you know, giving them strong recommendations to cut the tax rates, cut out the corporate rate, but to cut the individual rates to below 5%. That would be a phenomenal day for Arkansas. But there's also capital investments that companies do, something that I've always thought hurt Arkansas, and that's depreciation. Under this new tax bill that we just saw passed yesterday, a corporation or a company, a business of any kind, no matter how it's formed, or an individual, for example, buys $1 million piece of equipment. In 2017, you could deduct under the Section 179, $500,000 of that investment just this year. In Arkansas, you would just get, it may be a piece of equipment that'll last 10 years. You have to spread it over that period. And so what you would be doing is paying $1 million, deduct $500,000 of it on your federal return. And for Arkansas, you would have to pay 35%, 7% basically, or 6.5% of that $500,000.
Yeah.
So it's a real penalty. It's like Arkansas does not like real business in our state.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Sad to say.
Yeah, it certainly is. You mentioned Medicaid expansion, and that's why we kind of have an issue here with wanting to find more revenue, but somehow call it a tax cut when it's really going to be government growth. The governor is still waiting on a waiver approval from the Trump administration for changes to Medicaid expansion. It was supposed to come back in November, and we haven't heard anything yet. And then yesterday, they repealed the individual mandate, which people agree on both sides that this is the undoing of Obamacare. So the question is, would the Trump administration see an approval of this waiver as trying to prop up something that they just, kicked the legs out from under yesterday? And it dawned on me today. I was like, I wonder what establishment politicians in Arkansas think about that.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist health care program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal attack on his or her character. And if they admit to any wrongdoing at all, they must replace the word lie with words like misspoke, misstatement, misrepresent, or mislead.
Amazing! Excellent work, Susie. I feel like the student has really become the teacher. You will make a terrific addition to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language.
All hands on deck. This is a Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language emergency. Several politicians are scrambling after being exposed by some talk radio host. Let's move it, people. They need our help.
The Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language. You vote 'em in, and we keep 'em in. PHP Parody. If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group. Fighting dependency on government so Arkansas can be the land of opportunity once again. Paul Harrell is on now.
Hey, folks, you're listening to the best of the Paul Harrell program.
Well, I would ask our establishment, I would ask all politically elected people in this state who vote for us to do what we sent them to Little Rock and D.C. to do in 14 and 16, and to, I would say let's look at Josh Miller's bill to freeze enrollment. I mean, was that not the wisest thing we could do, is to freeze enrollment, and then by attrition, that bill will go away, and we'll be prepared before the federal government does knock out the legs under this stool. And, we've spent all this money, and let us take control of how we're going to unwind it. It was certainly promised, all this, when it was passed, as soon as, we're not making money off of it, we're going to do away with it. And all we've done is see it kind of look, something that I would sort of be because of the things I've learned, I would say a lot of these adjustments to Medicaid expansion or Arkansas Works is just biting around the edges, just trying to fix things, or maybe even a talking point for reelection. You're not going to see any real savings. I was very sad to see how proudly our administration talked about what they've done to clean up the rolls in 2018, or 17, or was it they just cleaned them up starting in November? I mean, at any rate, they didn't start cleaning them up until Arkansas had to pay some money. And to me, I don't care if it's Arkansas paying the bill or our federal government paying the bill. If it's tax money, it comes out of all of our pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're exactly right. We're talking with Brenda Vassar-Taylor. She is an Arkansas tax attorney, and she's also the co-founder of Conduit for Commerce. And you can go to conduitforcommerce.org and find out more about that great organization we talk about a lot. I want to say that calculator that we were just referencing, Brenda, the website for our listeners is taxplancalculator.com. So if you want to see how the final bill affects you, you go to this website and you can put in your income, what state you're from, and everything else, and it'll tell you what you're paying now in taxes and what you're going to pay after this tax bill passed. And it's just pretty amazing how you're going to get more money. I mean, you're going to be able to keep more of your own money, and that's what people have been campaigning on. That's what Republicans have been campaigning on, and I'm excited to see the economy just take off next year. It's going to be a fun thing to watch.
Let me end my part with a couple of strategies, if you have another minute.
Yes, we do.
In 2017, this is the 21st. We still have a little over a week. If people are a mind to make charitable deductions, double up on those charitable deductions, and because you're overall getting a bigger bang for your buck, because these are higher tax rates, higher tax brackets they're going to be in 2018. Also, if you've got income coming in that you don't have to take in 2017, push that off to 18 because it'll be taxed under lower brackets. And also take those deductions that maybe you wouldn't pay something, you could hold off and pay it in 18. Pay it now before the end of the year so you can take that deduction. And most of all, Arkansas, one of the negative things for our state, and someone told me the other day, well, I feel sorry for the blue states. At least we're not a blue state. Oh, no. As far as that tax bill is concerned, Arkansas is a blue state. They're like New York and California. We have high tax rates, and the tax, state income tax that people would normally deduct is going to be added with your real estate taxes, your sales tax, and that will be capped at $10,000. So people need to make sure that they make that January estimated tax payment that would be for 2017 state income taxes, make it in December.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's some really good advice. And so, yeah, I mean, I think people should definitely take advantage of that, and that's very interesting about pushing it. If you're going to get income now, and you can push it off until 2018, that's a smart play. I hadn't thought of that. So
Right, and do it corporately, do it from all perspectives. That anything that's part of your business or part of your tax situation, and look forward to next year. It's a great opportunity for our country.
All right. Well, Brenda Vassar-Taylor, we appreciate it so much. It's always great having you on, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right.
Merry Christmas.